We are going to be discussing the JonBenet Ramsey case tonight. We're coming up on the 30-year anniversary of this crime. Happened in December 1996. If you're new here, please like and subscribe. We're going to try to come every Sunday night with more information on the JonBenet Ramsey case. This case happened almost 30 years ago, and it's our contention that the killer was known day one. They knew who the killer was. Let's take a look at when they found the note. When you look at this picture here, let me see if I can blow it up for you. This is the staircase where they found the note. Let me show you what it looked like. Here it is. 3-page note. It's on the spiral staircase. Let me take you back to the staircase here. So here's the staircase. And this is not the main staircase in the house. This is a side staircase. And this note was found at about 5:52 a.m. by Patsy Ramsey. So it's our contention there's three aspects in this case. One, where was JonBenet Ramsey killed? She was killed at home. And if you're killed at home, then it's about a 90% chance that it's a family member or someone you know very close. Okay, that's the first thing. Number two, who was at home? There's three other people in the house. There's Patsy, John Ramsey, the father, and the son, Burke. So that's number two. And the third aspect is the ransom note. Who wrote the ransom note? So those are the three main aspects of the case. If you know those three, then you know who is involved in the case. So this case went to a grand jury in 1998. And I want to play a clip from one of the grand jurors so you can just see what was said. Play 100.
From three handwriting experts, and even though the handwriting experts couldn't definitively say that she wrote it, they all three came to the same conclusion that it could have been Patsy Ramsey, and the grand jury believed that she wrote it.
Bang! Oh, first shot right out.
So that was a clip from one of the grand jurors, and this case went to the grand jury in 1998. And they looked at all the evidence. They even had all the witnesses, all the evidence. They even had Lou Smith, detective for basically was working with the Ramseys. They let him present his intruder theory to the grand jury, and they rejected his theory of the intruder. They rejected it, and they basically, after the 13 months that the grand jury was convened, they basically recommended to indict the Ramseys. The district attorney, Alex Hunter, just didn't sign the indictment. Okay? So, let me play this again. I'm going to play another video basically about the intruder theory and why the grand jury rejected the intruder theory. Play 101.
Someone to get through a small opening like that and not disturbing a cobweb would be remarkable. The intruder theory didn't make sense to the grand jury.
Oh, bingo!
Okay. So there you go. The intruder theory just did not make sense. And I think Lou Smith basically wanted to come up with his own theory, and he was going to try to find anything he could to fit his theory of this intruder instead of looking at the evidence, which pointed towards Patsy Ramsey. Everything in this case points towards Patsy Ramsey. And Lou Smith basically just, he wanted a different theory. And he was going to try to find some evidence to fit his theory instead of looking at the evidence and saying, okay, here's the evidence. And here is what that points to, which was Patsy Ramsey. Let me play this again. Now, when you see this video, it's basically the window down in the basement that shows cobwebs. So basically, the intruder theory was that someone came through this window, okay? But there's cobwebs all over this window. So the intruder theory just does not work. It just does not work. Let me play this again.
But the grand jury wasn't buying the intruder theory because of those cobwebs in the window.
The intruder theory didn't make sense to the grand jury. The Boulder police had photographed cobwebs. So for someone to get through a small opening like that and not disturbing a cobweb would be remarkable. The intruder theory didn't make sense to the grand jury.
Okay, so the intruder theory basically just does not work. So let's take a look. All you hear today, right now, are stories about the DNA. And the DNA evidence, we call it here, is innocent DNA. That's what they have. They have innocent DNA. And what is that? What is innocent DNA? Well, basically, innocent DNA is, let's say you go to a grocery store and you leave your DNA, your skin cells on the cart. You're leaving your DNA at the self-checkout. You're touching things. So you're leaving your DNA at the grocery store. So you come home. And if that grocery store was robbed that day, that doesn't mean you robbed the store. It just means you left your DNA there. That's innocent DNA. And that's what they have. They have innocent DNA on JonBenet Ramsey. And I want to play this video clip about the innocent DNA that they have. Bear with me a second. We're going to play it here. 1 second. We can get the innocent DNA. And before we play it, let me make this point. Like I'm saying that JonBenet has innocent DNA on her. She has some DNA in her fingernails. She has DNA on her long johns, the waistband of her long johns. She had some DNA in her underwear. So basically 3 places she had some DNA. And it's our contention that it's innocent DNA. And what I mean by that is that on December 25th was Christmas. Okay. Now imagine being 6 years old on Christmas Day. She's out playing with her friends. She's playing with Berg's friends. And then that night they go out to several different friends' Christmas parties. You're interacting with more kids that night. You're interacting with adults. So you're picking up a lot of DNA on you. Okay. So that's what I mean by that they have innocent DNA. That's all they have on JonBenet Ramsey. And not only that, they only have minuscule amounts of DNA. It's very, very small, minuscule, fragmented DNA. They don't even have a full profile. So let me play the clip, play 101. And this is a clip about the different innocent mechanisms that you can get DNA.
Hey.
It's certainly possible that an intruder was responsible for the murder, but I don't think that the DNA evidence proves it.
The only way I can describe this evidence is uninformative. It really is, it's not dispositive of the presence of a perpetrator. There is foreign DNA, but that foreign DNA can easily be accounted for by a number of innocent mechanisms.
So there you have it. The DNA they have is just innocent DNA. And it's been years since they had this DNA. and they really can't even use it because it's so fragmented. They can't even get a full profile. But let's say they are able to get a full profile of the DNA. Okay, let's say that they get some technology where they can get a full profile and they locate someone. Do you know who they're going to locate? A friend that she played with that day, or one of the adults that came in contact with that day. That's it. So it's our contention that the ransom note is the smoking gun in this case. The ransom note, that is a smoking gun in this case. And basically, the grand jury that convened for about 13 months, they said the same thing. Whoever wrote the ransom note, let's take a look at the ransom note.
Read it,
Hold on a second. Let me pull up the ransom note. Okay, here's the ransom note. 3-page ransom note. Okay. Now, the only person that could have written this ransom note is Patsy Ramsey. Okay. The paper that it was written on came from within the house. Okay. Think about this. It's 3 pages long. Okay. Who was going to sit at the table and write a 3-page note unless you feel comfortable? Okay. Who would feel comfortable writing a 3-page note? Well, the owner of the house. They would feel comfortable. They're under no pressure to get out of the house. Okay. Patsy Ramsey was a journalism major. She worked as a copywriter. Writing was in her wheelhouse. Okay. This is what she did. She wrote for a newsletter, the holiday newsletter. Okay. So the paper came from within the house. The pen that wrote this letter came from within the house. So the only person that could have written this note is Patsy Ramsey. That's the only person that could have written this note. And she could not be excluded from writing this note. So let's take a look at a little video here of Barbara Walters basically stating the same thing. Hit 103.
For the defense.
what has thrown great suspicion in you, Mrs. Ramsey, as you know, is that some handwriting experts have said that there's a similarity between the writing on this note and your handwriting. This has been inconclusive, but the similarity of the handwriting is the strongest piece of evidence implicating you.
So, right there, they can't exclude her from the handwriting, okay? So again, who could have written this ransom note? Who could have written it? There's only one person that could have written a note. Now, before I showed you the 3-page note, here it is on the stairs. This is the 3-page note on the stairs. And this is a picture far away from the stairs. You just get an idea of what we're looking at here, this spiral staircase. So let's take a look at the note in a typed version. This is the typed version. So you can look at it. In the first 2 lines there, the first 3 lines, it says, Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a foreign faction. Now, what does that mean? I'll tell you what that means. That the person that is involved with the killing of JonBenet wanted to distance themselves, okay? Because they're in the house. And the way to distance themselves is to write that we're a small foreign faction, okay? Basically to misdirect police. That's the first thing that they do in this note, is to try to misdirect police. We want the police to look everywhere else other than the house, the home. Don't look in the home. We want you to look elsewhere, a foreign faction. Look overseas, look somewhere else. So, and then it says down here on line 8, you withdraw $800,000. So $118,000. That was almost the exact bonus of John Ramsey, the father. What are the odds that some person is going to come up with $118,000? It just doesn't make sense at all. None. So this ransom note basically is in Patsy's wheelhouse. At the end of the note, it gets very personal. She starts talking about John. Instead of Mr. Ramsey, she's saying John. So the other aspect is this was not written by a stranger. If you rule out a stranger, then the suspects become very, very small. Very small. And again, it all comes back to who was in the house that wrote this letter. Who was there? There was only 3 other people. Burke, the son, age 9, Patsy, and John, the father. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at this video here.
For the defense.
What has thrown great suspicion in you, Mrs. Ramsey, as you know, is that some handwriting experts have said that there's a similarity between the writing on this note and your handwriting.
Again, the handwriting. Now, it is noted that Patsy was ambidextrous. She could use her right and left hands. And that apparently some of the experts thought this note was written with the left hand, which Patsy could have done because she was ambidextrous. So everything points to Patsy. And I want to show you something where in the year 2000, they were on Larry King, Patsy and John Ramsey. And Larry King was asking about when they found the ransom note. And Patsy Ramsey will not answer the question. She's mumbling, she's bumbling. She wants nothing to do with this question. She does not want to answer it. Okay? Let me take a look here and see if we can pull this up. So basically, Larry King has asked her about finding the ransom note and what they do. And you also see John Ramsey say, oh, it was 3 years ago, but they just wrote a book on it. And he also says, well, we've been over it 100 times. Well, if you've been over it 100 times, you would know if you picked it up and read the ransom note. Okay? This is Patsy just trying to avoid answering the question. You know why she's avoiding the question? Because she wrote it, and she doesn't want anything to do with the ransom note. Let's see if we can take a look at this.
I don't remember. Larry, we don't remember. This is 100
You wrote
times.
a book about it, so.
You don't know how you wrote a book about it. You wrote a book about it. You don't know how you got the ransom note? They don't want to address the question. So, look, here, she's trying to say how she basically put her hand on top of the ransom note, not even touching it. And then you see John here looking down at his hands like he's going to have to answer a question. What am I going to say about my hands?
Well, I hardly read it, you know.
She just said, I hardly read it. And she won't answer the question what she did with the note.
And didn't take long.
Look, she's acting like she's putting a spell on the note. Like, I didn't touch it. I hardly read it. She won't answer the question and what she did with the note. She doesn't want to answer the question because she wrote the note and she knows that's a smoking gun in the case. She wants nothing to do with the note. Let's talk a little bit about the housekeeper, Linda Hoffman Pugh, who testified before the grand jury. Okay? She thought Patsy Ramsey killed JonBenet. And the grand jury zeroed in on Patsy Ramsey. That's why they indicted. They recommended to indict her. Okay? So, if you remember, JonBenet was found in the basement room with a blanket wrapped around JonBenet. Okay? JonBenet was found in a basement room. There was a couple rooms down there. And the room she was found in was a cold, dark, windowless room. It was an obscure room in the basement. There was another room down there, which was Burke's playroom with his electrical train. So There was a couple rooms in the basement, but JonBenet was found in this dark, cold room, and she was wrapped in a blanket. Now, who would wrap her in a blanket? The mother would. The mother would. And the housekeeper basically has inside knowledge of what's going on in that house. She's been working there for months. And the housekeeper testified to the grand jury that the blanket was in the dryer. The only one that would know where the blanket is Patsy Ramsey. Let me say that again. The only one that would know where the blanket was is Patsy Ramsey. Also, the housekeeper had taken a Swiss Army knife away from Burke. Burke used to go around the house whittling with a Swiss Army knife, basically leaving shaves of wood around the house. And Patsy told her to confiscate the knife because there were just too many of these wood shavings everywhere. So the housekeeper took the Swiss Army knife. She confiscated it from Burke. She put the knife in a linen closet, hid it there. The only person that would know where that knife was Patsy Ramsey. That knife was found in the same room with JonBenet Ramsey. Okay? How would that knife get there? Okay? I want to talk about when JonBenet Ramsey was found, she had some red fibers on her. And these red fibers came from Patsy Ramsey's jacket. Okay? Patsy Ramsey wore a red jacket that night when she was out. When they all went out, she was wearing that red jacket. And that jacket was found in the ligatures on JonBenet Ramsey. It was found in the duct tape. There was duct tape over JonBenet Ramsey's mouth. Her red fibers from that jacket was in the duct tape. It was in the ligatures. And I want to play you a clip here of where the detectives are telling Patsy that all these fibers from her red jacket are in the ligatures that are on JonBenet's hands. They're in the duct tape that was on JonBenet's mouth. Let me play this for you.
The blanket that she's wrapped in.
Okay. So right there, the first thing you hear him saying is that the red fibers are in the blanket that JonBenet Ramsey is wrapped in. Okay? So let's play it.
It's found on her mouth.
I have no evidence from any scientist to suggest that those fibers are from any source other than your red jacket.
Okay. Let's play it again so you get the whole thing.
Fibers from her jacket were found in the paint tray, were found tied into the ligature found on JonBenet's neck, were found on the blanket that she's wrapped in, were found on the duct tape that's found on her mouth.
I have no evidence from any scientist to suggest that those fibers are from any source other than your red jacket.
Again, basically the detective is telling her that there's red fibers there in the room. There's a paint tray near JonBenet, and there's red fibers in the paint tray. Remember, there was a broken paint brush around her neck. So now there's red fibers in the paint tray. There's red fibers in the blanket. There's red fibers in the ligatures. There's red fibers in the duct tape on her mouth. And all those red fibers are from Patsy Ramsey's jacket. Let's play it again.
Fibers from her jacket were found in the paint tray, were found tied into the ligature found on JonBenet's neck, were found on the blanket that she's wrapped in, were found on the duct tape that's found on her mouth.
I have no evidence from any scientist to suggest that those fibers are from any source other than your red jacket.
So there, at the end, he's basically saying he has no evidence that those fibers could come from anywhere else. They came from her red jacket. Okay, so let's take a look at, if you're liking the content, please like and subscribe to the channel. We're going to try to come every Sunday with more information on the JonBenet Ramsey case. Again, we think the smoking gun in this case is the ransom note. It is not the DNA. All they're going to find with the DNA is an innocent party. Okay? and the grand jury basically agreed with this. The grand jury zeroed in on the ransom note. If you find out who wrote the ransom note, that's who's involved in the case. And the only one that could have written the ransom note is Patsy Ramsey, because it's not a stranger, because the note is very personal towards John Ramsey, very personal towards him. This is not a stranger. This is not somebody walking down the street and decided to go in the house. Okay? Just know. Let's take a look at the grand juror here. Play 104.
Jonathan Webb. I was a grand juror on the JonBenet Ramsey case. It bothers me that the murder of a little girl like this has gone on unsolved for essentially a quarter century.
That was one of the grand jurors. So again, the grand jury was convened in 1998, and they spent 13 months looking at the evidence, the witnesses. They took all the information in. They rejected Lou Smith's intruder theory, rejected it. And they really focused on the ransom note, which we feel here is the smoking gun in the case. And so if you go back to the housekeeper, Linda Hoffman Pugh, let's see, she said during December, okay, this killing took place on December 25th, Christmas night. And the housekeeper was saying during December that Patsy was having all sorts of issues during December. She was turning 40. She was no longer the 1977 Miss West Virginia. And she was just out of sorts in December. Let's take a look at a little image here. Play 105, show 105, this image here. So this is just the housekeeper saying the holidays can be depressing. I don't blame you for being down. Your big 4-0 birthday was less than a week away. You had dealt with ovarian cancer for years, and your beauty queen looks were fading. Miss West Virginia of 77 had become a middle-aged matron. You loved JonBenet, but she was a handful, wetting the bed every night. She was driving you crazy. So Patsy was having all kind of issues going on during December. She was all out of sorts. Just think of this. Every room in the house had to have a Christmas tree. So she was dealing with 2 rambunctious kids. JonBenet was wetting the bed almost every night. The house, even the prior housekeeper was saying this. And this must have been upsetting to Patsy because she's got this beauty queen daughter. But this was every morning going in there and having to deal with this. So if we go back to the housekeeper, the housekeeper basically says this room where JonBenet was found was very obscure. There's no way an intruder would have found this room. Okay. But you know who would know about the room? The owners of the house. They would know about this room. It was very obscure in the basement. So this is what she testified basically to the grand jury. An intruder never would have found the door to the basement room where JonBenet's body was discovered. It was too difficult to see unless someone knew it was there, she said. So again, the housekeeper has zeroed in on Patsy. The grand jury zeroed in on Patsy. The only person that could have written that note is Patsy Ramsey. She's the only one that could have written it. Now, go back to these stairs. Let's take a look at the stairs. Here are the stairs where the notes were found. And basically, again, Patsy will not answer the question about what she did with the note. She won't answer it. Did she pick it up and read it? She won't answer that question because she wants to keep away from that. That basically is the smoking gun of the case, and she wants to distance herself from that. Now, She found this note at 5:52 a.m., I believe, in the morning. And think about this. She has to call 911. She has to do it. So she does call 911, okay? And she tells the operator at 911, she tells him, JonBenet is gone. She says that twice. JonBenet Ramsey is gone. Now think about that. She's telling the operator basically two things there. That she is gone, and also she's dead. She's basically saying two things at once. Trying to tell the operator that she's gone, like not here, but also that she's really gone. And so, I mean, just kind of an insight of what is going on there, of what she's saying to the operator. Patsy Ramsey is gone. She's really saying two things there when she says that. The other thing is on the 911 call is that Patsy hangs up the phone quickly. Okay? And this is what a guilty person does. Okay? She knows she has to call 911, but she quickly hangs up the phone. She doesn't want the recording to hear anything that John Ramsey, the father, says in the background. She doesn't want anything that Burke Ramsey says in the background. She doesn't want that to be heard. And when they listened to the 911 call, they thought that they may have heard something right when Patsy was hanging up the phone, but they couldn't tell what it was. But Patsy quickly hangs up the phone, the 911 call. She quickly hangs up and gets off the call quickly. She doesn't want anything to be heard in the background when she's on that call. So I'm going to wrap things up here, and we'll be back next Sunday. And again, this case should be solved. And the DA had a chance to take this case to trial. The grand jury voted to indict the Ramseys back in 99 when they finished everything. The grand jury rejected the intruder theory, even though Lou Smith tried to, pass his intruder theory on to the grand jury. They rejected it because all the evidence pointed towards Patsy, not an intruder. But the DA would not sign the indictments. Do you want to know why the DA did not sign the indictments? Because the OJ case was fresh in his mind. But to me, that is just, you're a DA, you're a prosecutor. You're supposed to prosecute. And the grand jury came back with a recommendation to indict the Ramseys, and he basically chickened out. The DA did. He did not sign the indictments against the Ramseys. And, if you're a prosecutor and the grand jury brings back recommendations to indict, okay, there's evidence to indict. And he should have prosecuted. And I'm going to leave it at that. And then please like and subscribe. And we'll be back next Sunday where we talk more information about the DNA, which we believe is what we call innocent DNA, and more about the note. We're going to get more into the note, the 3-page note, on what it says and why all the information in there goes back to Patsy Ramsey. Even there's more information in the note that we didn't even get into tonight that goes back to Patsy Ramsey and why she wrote the note and all the evidence of why we feel that she's involved. And think about this, that JonBenet was put in this obscure basement room, okay? We're going to talk about that next time and what happened that morning. We're going to talk about that, the morning when they found JonBenet and why she was put in that obscure basement room. There's also 2 marks on JonBenet that line up to the train track that Burke had. Burke had an electronic train track. And the track, if you take the track and you turn it sideways, that track matches exactly to the 2 marks on JonBenet Ramsey's body. Exactly. And we may have a photo of it, which I can show you quickly here. We're going to talk more about it, but let me show you the photo that shows the train track that marks up directly to the 2 marks on JonBenet. Again, this is the train track of Burke's electric train set. Now, they thought this, Lou Smith tried to say that this was a stun gun mark. And his theory was debunked because it did not fit a stun gun. It was abrasions. It was not burns. And it did not fit. The width of the marks did not fit a stun gun. And also it was abrasions. But let's take a look at the track and the abrasions on the 2 abrasions, how they line up exactly. Now that is the train track, Burke's train track, and it lines up exactly of the 2 marks on JonBenet. Exactly. Okay? It's exactly on the marks. So please like and subscribe to News Right Now. We're going to bring you exclusive updates on all JonBenet Ramsey. Again, next week, more on the note. We're going to delve deeper into that note and why we feel Patsy is the writer of that note. Just like the grand jury said, you find the writer of that note, that is the person that's involved in this case. The whole intruder theory was rejected by the grand jury. And the only person that really wanted to pass that along was Lou Smith. And he was working with the Ramseys. That's all that needs to be said about that. But thanks for watching, and we will see you next week where we go more into the note and also the pineapple issue. Pineapple was found inside JonBenet's stomach and her digestive tract. And there's the bowl of pineapples. They call it Pineapple Gate. We're going to go into the pineapple and why that is so important when we talk about that next week. Again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.